Hi, everyone. Hoping that you all are well. Thank you for joining us as we delve into the Hebrew history, a history that is replete with mysticism. This is an extremely esoteric history that includes a number of God codes. And so we're going to delve into some of these God codes. We're going to be starting off today looking at one particular aspect of the God code, and it relates to an apparent history among the Hebrews of a sort of secret or mystery system of female worship or divine feminine worship. It might also translate to a mother god dynamic. So we're going to look at some of the elements of this particular God code. And then again, we're just going to do this in pieces so that you can digest a little bit at a time and then move on to the next portion. In addition to Tupac hailing Mary, who is a manifestation in the New Testament, we also have another manifestation of the divine feminine in the book of Revelation. So we have this woman who is being pursued by this dragon like creature. And both of these entities appear to be related to a prophecy coming out of Isaiah, again, related to the divine feminine. And we talked about that before. Now, we also have this dynamic in the Old Testament related to the divine feminine or the feminine principle in Ani. But what we also see is a pattern of the deities identified in the Old Testament being feminine in nature. And there are a number of ways to identify this feminine nature, and that's a part of the God code. What's also interesting is that you have all of these artists insinuating this divine feminine dynamic without going into detail about why they believe this or why they are asserting this. You see this with respect to this refrain in the song Umbrella that is performed by Rihanna, and we've discussed her name. But this song is co written by Jay-Z, who is also known as Hova. Not only do you see the God code symbol in Rihanna's name, you also see the God code symbol in the name Hova, which of course is related to Jehovah. Now, many people will offer that these names have nothing to do with each other, but when you see the etymology of both names and you see them tracing back to a common denominator, you see that there is a connection between these two names. And then you start to also note the God code dynamic in both of these instances. So, in addition to Tupac, Rihanna, and Jay Z insinuating this divine feminine dynamic, we have Ariana Grande, who is offering very directly this assertion that God is a woman, and not only a belief that God is a woman, but when a woman, specifically her, exercises a certain type of power, that men in particular will come away with the belief that God is a woman. What's interesting about this particular performer's name, in addition to it simply being Ariana, is that her name means most holy or holy of holies. And so, if you look in the Old Testament, you will see the significance of someone having this particular name. And so, she's making a lot of insinuations with this name. She's making a lot of assertions with the lyrics to this particular song. In addition to these celebrities, it's very interesting how many people clamor to be identified as a god or a goddess or a king or a queen or a lord. There are so many people who want to be deified, who have deified themselves and then deify others. There are so many people who are clamoring to be elevated, to be seen as superhuman, to be seen as more than the average man, and not only to be seen as more, but to be seen as something that should be worshiped, something that should be revered outside of self. It's just a very interesting dynamic. And then you see some of these names throughout history that seem to manifest these dynamics of deifying actual people. They are presented as gods and goddesses, but they essentially are people who have simply been deified. And in many instances, particularly with the Hebrews, there appears to be a pattern of deifying these ancestors. Now let's delve into this God code. If you look to the left of the equation, you see the symbol that symbolizes the God code. And so whenever you see this symbol, know that it is representing God. And so you see on the right-hand side, God. Not only does this symbol represent God, it represents a number of other dynamics, and we will get into that. Additionally, the meaning of this God code symbol is behold. It also represents the idea of see. Additionally, it represents look. It is also associated with breath. And ultimately, it is identified as that which is reveal. And so this God code symbol that basically looks like an N in the English language, it means reveal. It is about revelation. And so this symbol is revealing something. And often it's revealing something about the noun to which it is attached. This God code symbol also is the essence of the feminine principle. And so when you see it, not only are you seeing a manifestation symbolically of God, you are also seeing symbolically the manifestation of the feminine principle. And here we have some additional commentary related to the God code and this feminine principle symbol. It indicates here, this is coming from the Ancient Hebrew Research Center, an author noted as Jeff Benner. The individual offers that with respect to feminine derivatives, in Hebrew, all nouns are either masculine or feminine. In most cases, a feminine noun is formed by adding one of these symbols that you see at the bottom to the end of a noun. This includes that God code symbol that we've been talking about, and you can see that to the far left. What's interesting, however, is that if you are looking in Strong's Concordance and you're trying to understand whether a noun, whether a proper noun is masculine or feminine, sometimes it is left off when it's sitting there staring you right in your face. And so you will sometimes see that the noun is masculine. You will sometimes see that the noun is feminine. But again, when that God code symbol is sitting right there, it is often left off. And there is often the insinuation that the entity being described or discussed is male or masculine. However, you see that feminine principle there and you see that God code symbol there. There's also an offering here that because the Hebrew language is an action-oriented language rather than descriptive, it is prolific with verbs. And so with respect to these verbs, there is also a way of identifying whether there are gender dynamics with respect to the verb. And so you have tense associated with the verb, you have mood, and you have voice associated with the word. Now, it's offered that it's not essential to know all of this in order to do appropriate biblical interpretation, but I offer to you that it is essential to know some of this in order to do appropriate biblical interpretation. Without it, sometimes there is significant misunderstanding, and that's what you have going on with respect to the God code and that symbol that represents the God code that is also a symbol of the divine feminine or the feminine principle. And here you see additional notations related to that God code symbol, which is pronounced hey. And it offers here at the end of a word, hey often indicates that the word is feminine. Now, when you look at many of the words and many of the names that are in scripture in the Old Testament, you will note that many of these names are supposed to be male names. However, when you look at the etymology of the word and you deconstruct it and you see that particular symbol there associated with the particular name, you know that this symbol is qualifying the noun it is giving character to the noun, and it is identifying the noun as feminine, even though there is an assertion that the entity is masculine. This includes names associated with the Creator God in the Old Testament. And here you see some additional notations related to this particular God code symbol, which again is pronounced He. And it indicates the letter He signifies the creation. He signifies divinity. And here the Board of Jewish Education clarifies further, indicating the Hebrew language is gender-based, hence the masculine and feminine form of most words. The letter He, that's that God code symbol, denotes femininity, as it is the suffix that makes a word feminine. Note that it is the suffix that makes a word feminine. The divine presence in the letter He signifies the Shekinah, the feminine aspect of God. And so when you see that letter He as a suffix, remember this. Even though there may be an insinuation that the word is masculine or that the entity is masculine, what is generally being asserted, even if it is esoteric, even if it is a part of a mystery, what is being asserted is that that which preceded the He letter is now made feminine by the presence of the He letter. And here you can see the progression of the He letter throughout time. And you can see up in the upper left-hand corner the most recent iteration of this particular symbol. And so that is that God code symbol, that feminine principle symbol, that divine feminine symbol. And it is pronounced He. You might see H-E-Y or H-E-I. With respect to the sound that is made by the He symbol, you will hear the sound ah or eh. What's also noteworthy about the He symbol, the ah is representing breath, spirit, and life. Hence this ah association with the Holy Spirit. And here we're just going to walk through a few transliterations so that you can see that in various languages, the understanding is that this He symbol means God. And so you see it in the Italian Dio. And here very specifically with respect to this translation, you see that this God code symbol, this He symbol, is translating to Mawu, which is a mother God dynamic. Again, you see this understanding of this God code symbol going into the Yoruba, translating as Olorun. Again, you see this mother God dynamic here with the God code symbol translating as Ma, M-A. And here the He symbol, the God code symbol, is translating as Theo or Theos in the Greek. And here you see the direct translation of the He symbol as God. This God code symbol with this feminine principle is so gender related that even when you are looking at words that are associated with gender, what you will find is that this symbol is related to whatever the word is that means female. And so you see this when you look at him and her. You see the symbol associated with her. You don't see the symbol associated with the word him. Again, you see this symbol, this God code symbol associated with the word female, not associated with the word male. Continuing on with the word man and woman. Again, you see this gender dynamic with respect to this God code symbol. You see it manifesting in the translation for woman, but you don't see it manifesting in the translation for the word man. And so this God code symbol, this feminine principle symbol, is heavily associated with the feminine or femininity. Now, even though you see this heavy correlation between this God code symbol and this feminine principle dynamic, don't let this lead you to believe that women are God or that God is a woman. And I mean that in the physical sense. Again, people are asserting these sorts of things. God is a man, God is a woman. That is a part of a narcissistic dynamic where individuals want to remake God in their own image. And part of this is so that they can engage in their own sort of self worship. And then, of course, try to get others to worship in a similar manner. What we're going to look at now is the actual obscuring of not only the God code, but also that feminine principle with respect to some of the entities in the Old Testament. And so we're going to be looking at Jehovah in relation to Hova in order to see how this divine feminine dynamic is obscured. Now, many people will offer that that's not what is going on, but you will see very clearly that that is exactly what's going on. Right now, we see the word Hova, and Hova, of course, is the name by which Jay-Z goes. And when you look at Hova, you see very clearly the symbol that we've talked about, the God code symbol. You see that feminine principle symbol of Hey. In this instance, clearly, it's indicating that Hova is a feminine noun. And you can see that by the ending. You can see that by the God code symbol and this feminine principle symbol. Now, in this instance, Hova is understood as a ruin and a disaster. But you also see, with respect to word origin, that this is coming from Hava. Okay, so that's important to make note of because there are many people who will assert that Hova and Jehovah have nothing to do with each other. But you are going to see that there is a significant relationship between these entities. And of course, we've looked at some of this before when we've been looking at Haya and Ahaya. But what you see here at 1933 is Hava is to become. And so to become is the root of this word Hova. What you see here is Jehovah or Yehovah. You also, when you look at the top, you see this is the proper name of the God of Israel. Now, in current times, you'll have many people saying that that is not the proper name of the God of Israel, and they will offer all sorts of reasons why this is suddenly not the proper name of the God of Israel, although that's the name that is sitting in Scripture. Okay? When you look at the original word, you also see the God code symbol. You see that Hey symbol up there where it says original word. And when you look at it, it looks very similar to Hova. When you go down below, in terms of etymology, you see the word origin. This is also coming from Hava. And it's at 1933b, just like Hova is at 1933b. And so it means the same thing again. So Jehovah and Hova are coming from a similar root, coming from a similar meaning, which is to become. And this is where you note the obscuring. And so it indicates the part of speech is a proper name, but unlike Hova, it's refusing to tell you that this proper name is feminine, that this proper name has the Hey symbol as the suffix. And so that suffix then makes what comes before it feminine. And here you can see a notation about the anglicized version of Jehovah versus the older translation of this name as Yahweh. And here you can see multiple etymology references, and each reference, no matter where you go with this, each reference is going to provide you with the God code. It's also going to provide that Hey as a suffix. And so all of the references are insinuating that Jehovah is understood based upon the feminine principle. And so this is a feminine entity according to the structure of the language in terms of the etymology of this particular word. And we're just going to look at some specific examples of other names that have these obscured feminine dynamics associated with the names. You see this with Jonah and with Noah. If you look over to the right-hand side, you see the translation, and in the translation, you see the God code symbol, you see the He symbol, and you know that that He symbol as a suffix feminizes whatever comes before it. And so these are feminine nouns even if they are offered as masculine entities. You also see the God code symbol in words such as Judah and Allah. If you look over to the right, you see the God code symbol indicating divinity, but you also see the God code symbol that is indicating femininity with respect to the noun. And so that addition of the He as a suffix then feminizes whatever comes before it. It's also important to note that sometimes these words have different meanings in other languages or different ways of pronouncing them in other languages. However, with respect to Arabic, for instance, Hebrew is older than Arabic, and so this rule applies with respect to the Arabic. Again, we are still talking about this Hebrew umbrella. And here you can see Jehovah and Hova together on the screen. And you can again see the God code right over on the right hand side there. And you also again see that He as the suffix that is feminizing whatever comes before it. Another interesting notation about the He symbol, about the God code symbol, is that this particular symbol, this particular letter, is associated with the number 5. And so finally, associated with that number 5, we have the tetragrammaton. This is understood as the Hebrew theonym. In other words, the God name. You can see that it has 5 points, and it looks very esoteric when you look at it. It looks like it's a part of some sort of mysterious system. What's unclear is the actual meaning of the tetragrammaton. It's not uh, basic public knowledge, the actual origin of the tetragrammaton. So again, there's a lot of mystery associated with this particular dynamic, but you can also see when translating tetragrammaton that it is translating with this God code and with this feminine principle. Of course, there is one question that remains related to all of this obscuring. If an entity has a history of revering the divine feminine, being associated with the divine feminine, worshiping the divine feminine, why would that entity simultaneously disavow such? Why would this entity, with respect to the Abrahamic tradition, why would this entity have such a historical disdain for that which is female? These are some questions to consider with respect to this entire dynamic. And also, one might want to consider what are the implications for having this disdain for that which is feminine if the deity that one is worshiping is also understood as being based upon the feminine principle.